He promised he wouldn't miss this one. Not this appointment. Not after the miscarriage. Not after the night she cried herself to sleep, whispering that she was scared of doing this alone. Yet Lena sat on the stiff white chair in the ultrasound room, her hands folded tightly over the curve of her stomach, staring at the empty space beside her. The technician glanced at the doorway again. "Is the father joining us?" she asked gently. Lena smiled automatically. The kind of smile women learn to wear when disappointment becomes routine. He's running late. But she already knew, because Julian Moreau was never late for the things that mattered to him. The hum of the machine filled the room. The baby's heartbeat echoed softly, steady and alive. Lena swallowed hard as tears burned behind her eyes. She wished, just once, that Julian would hear it too. What she didn't know yet was that while she sat alone, carrying their child, Julian was keeping a promise, just not to her. And when Lena finally discovered the truth, she didn't scream, she didn't beg, she didn't confront him. She simply stopped waiting. Some mistakes change everything. If stories of regret, grovel, and hard-earned love speak to you, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you've ever loved someone who realized too late, tell me in the comments. Now, back to her story. 6 months earlier, Lena Hart had never imagined herself as a billionaire's wife. She'd been a senior consultant at a tech firm when Julian Moreau walked into her presentation. He didn't just listen. He challenged every assumption she made. She'd stood her ground, refused to be intimidated, and somehow that had fascinated him. Their courtship was a whirlwind. Private jets, rooftop dinners, conversations that lasted until dawn. Julian was magnetic, brilliant, driven, impossible to ignore. He made her feel seen in ways no one else had. "You're different," he'd told her once, his fingers threading through hers. "You don't need me. That's why I need you." She'd laughed, thinking it was romantic. She didn't realize it was also a warning. The wedding was perfect. Too perfect, maybe. Julian's mother, Madame Genevieve Moreau, had orchestrated every detail. Lena had wanted something intimate, but Genevieve insisted on grandeur. 500 guests. A cathedral. A reception that cost more than most people's homes. "You're marrying into legacy," Genevieve had said, her smile sharp as cut glass. "Act accordingly." Lena had tried to connect with her mother-in-law. She'd asked about Julian's childhood, about family traditions, about Genevieve's own life. But every conversation felt like a test Lena was failing. "Julian's father left us when he was 8, Genevieve said one afternoon, her voice tight. "I rebuilt everything alone. I made Julian who he is." A mother's sacrifice is something no wife can ever truly understand. The message was clear. Lena would always be an outsider. The first year of marriage was harder than Lena expected. Julian worked constantly. 18-hour days, weekend business trips, phone calls at midnight. She understood, at least she told herself she did. Building an empire required sacrifice. But slowly, the loneliness crept in. Dinners eaten alone. Conversations cut short. Promises postponed. "I'll make it up to you," Julian would say, kissing her forehead while his mind was already elsewhere. "Once this deal closes, once this quarter ends, once. Always once, never now." Still, Lena adapted. She'd always been good at that. She filled her days with charity work, with her own consulting projects, with anything that kept the silence at bay. Then she got pregnant. The joy was immediate and terrifying. Julian had been thrilled, genuinely, visibly thrilled. He'd spun her around in their penthouse, laughing like a boy. For weeks he'd been attentive, present. He'd attended the first appointment, held her hand during the initial ultrasound, listened to the heartbeat with tears in his eyes. "We're going to be parents," he'd whispered, his voice thick with wonder. Lena had let herself hope. Maybe this would change things. Maybe motherhood and fatherhood would realign their priorities. Then came the miscarriage. 12 weeks. A routine checkup that turned into a nightmare. The nurse's careful expression, the doctor's gentle words, the sudden, devastating absence of a heartbeat. Lena remembered sitting in the examination room, her body numb, her mind refusing to process what she'd just heard. The nurse had asked if she wanted to call someone. She'd dialed Julian, straight to voicemail. He was in a board meeting. She'd driven herself home, climbed into bed, waited. Julian arrived 6 hours later. He'd held her, said all the right things, but his phone kept buzzing. Eventually, he'd stepped into his office to take a call. She could hear his voice through the door, sharp, focused, alive, while she lay in the dark, feeling hollow. That night, she'd broken. Completely, desperately broken. She'd clutched his shirt and whispered, "Please, I can't go through this alone again. If it happens again, I need you there. I need you to choose me." Julian had frozen, then nodded. "I promise. I won't miss the next one. I swear to you, Lena, nothing will keep me away." She'd believed him. She had to. Could you forgive a broken promise like that? 3 months later, she was pregnant again. The fear was overwhelming. Every twinge, every moment of uncertainty sent her spiraling. But Julian seemed different this time, more careful, more present. He'd marked the ultrasound appointment in his calendar, set 3 reminders, promised her over breakfast that morning. "Nothing will keep me away," he'd said, squeezing her hand. "I'll be there." So when Lena sat in that waiting room, alone, watching other couples arrive hand in hand, she told herself there must be an emergency, an accident, something unforeseeable. Her phone buzzed. A text from Julian. "Held up. I'm so sorry. I'll explain later." 4 words. That's all her presence was worth. The technician was kind. She didn't push when Lena said Julian couldn't make it. She simply performed the ultrasound, narrating what she saw, pointing out tiny fingers and toes. The baby was healthy, strong, growing perfectly. Lena memorized every detail. She'd have to describe it later, alone. She drove home in silence. No music, no tears. Just a strange, hollow clarity settling in her chest. Julian came home at 9 that evening. He was carrying flowers. Expensive, beautiful, meaningless. "For you," he said, his smile apologetic. "To make up for today." "How did it go?" Lena took the flowers, set them in water. "It went well. The baby's healthy." "That's wonderful." He kissed her cheek. "I'm sorry I couldn't be there. Something came up with Mom. She needed me urgently." Something inside Lena went very still. "Your mother?" She had a doctor's appointment. She was anxious about it and didn't want to go alone. "A doctor's appointment," Lena repeated slowly. I know, but she was really worked up about it. You understand, right?" And that was the moment everything changed. Lena understood perfectly. Julian's mother had a minor appointment, probably routine, probably nothing, and he'd chosen that over his pregnant wife's ultrasound. After a miscarriage, after promising. "Of course," Lena said quietly. "I understand." And she did. She understood that she would always come second, that Julian's promises meant nothing when weighed against his mother's demands, that she'd married a man who would always be his mother's son before he was her husband. She didn't confront him, didn't argue, didn't cry. She simply stopped expecting anything different. The shift was subtle at first. Lena stopped sharing pregnancy updates unless Julian specifically asked. She went to appointments alone, documenting everything in a journal she kept hidden. She stopped waiting up when he worked late, stopped cooking dinners he wouldn't be home to eat. Julian barely noticed. Why would he? She'd always been understanding, patient, easy. When her obstetrician suggested a specialist consultation for some minor complications, Lena scheduled it herself, went alone, made decisions about her own healthcare without consulting her husband. It happened on a Tuesday. Sharp pains sent her to the emergency room at 2 in the morning. She called her friend Simone instead of Julian. Simone picked her up, held her hand through the examination, stayed until the doctors confirmed everything was fine. Just Braxton Hicks contractions, nothing serious. Julian found out 3 days later when he noticed the hospital bracelet in the bathroom trash. "You went to the emergency room?" His face paled. "Why didn't you call me?" Lena looked at him calmly. "You were busy." "Lena, I'm never too busy for." "Yes, you are." Her voice was gentle, matter of fact. "And that's okay. I've learned to handle things myself." Something flickered in Julian's eyes. Confusion, maybe, or the first hint of concern. But then his phone rang, his mother, and he stepped away to answer it. Lena returned to folding laundry. She'd long since stopped competing for his attention. The most dangerous woman is the one who stops explaining. Genevieve had always treated Lena like temporary furniture. Present, but insignificant. She called Julian constantly. Morning, afternoon, evening. She needed his advice on investments, his help with her social calendar, his presence at dinners, galas, charity functions. "A man's first duty is to his mother," Genevieve liked to say. "The woman who sacrificed everything for him." Julian never disagreed, never set boundaries, never suggested that maybe, just maybe, his pregnant wife might need him more. Lena started declining invitations to Genevieve's events. She was tired, she'd say. The pregnancy was exhausting. Genevieve would sigh dramatically and tell Julian that his wife was becoming antisocial. "She's pregnant, Mom," Julian would say mildly. "I was pregnant once too. I didn't use it as an excuse." The final straw came quietly. Lena had finished setting up the nursery, mostly alone, with Simone's help. She'd chosen soft grays and whites, installed shelves, assembled the crib while Julian was at work. She was proud of it. She walked past Julian's office one evening, heading to bed. The door was ajar. She heard his voice, low and warm. "I'll always choose you," he said into the phone. "You know that, Mom. You're my priority. Always have been. Always will be." Lena stopped in the hallway. She didn't move, didn't breathe. Julian continued, unaware she was listening. "Lena understands. She's not demanding like other women might be. She knows family comes first." Family, as if Lena and their unborn child weren't family. She walked to the bedroom, pulled her suitcase from the closet, started packing. Something tugged in her heart, telling her she was overreacting, that pregnancy hormones were getting the best of her. But in that moment, she didn't care what was taking over. The pain in her chest was winning, and she couldn't do anything about it. Lena didn't pack everything, just essentials: clothes, documents, a few personal items. She moved methodically, numbly, feeling nothing at all. She drafted the divorce papers herself. She'd done enough legal work to know how. Irreconcilable differences, separate assets, full custody of the baby. She'd ask for nothing else. No alimony, no settlement. She just wanted out. She left the envelope on the kitchen table, left her wedding ring beside it, called Simone to pick her up. "Are you sure?" Simone asked, helping her load the car. "I've never been more sure of anything." "He's going to lose his mind." Lena smiled faintly. "Maybe. But it won't change anything." The house was silent when Julian came home. He called out. Once, twice. Then he saw the envelope. His hands shook as he opened it. Divorce papers. Clinical. Final. Lena's signature already at the bottom. He called her immediately, straight to voicemail. He called again, and again, 20 times in 10 minutes. Nothing. Panic clawed up his chest. He ran through the house, confirming what he already knew. Her things were gone. The nursery sat half-finished, a monument to his failures. He called Simone. "Where is she?" "Somewhere you can't hurt her anymore." "Simone, please. I need to talk to her." "You've had months to talk to her, Julian." "She's done listening." For the first time in his life, Julian Moreau felt powerless. He didn't sleep. He called in sick to work, something he'd never done. He hired a private investigator. He called Lena's friends, her family, anyone who might know where she'd gone. Everyone refused to help him. He sat in the nursery, staring at the crib Lena had assembled without him, and felt reality crash down. He'd been so certain she'd always be there, patient, understanding, waiting. He'd taken her for granted in the most fundamental way possible. His mother called. "Julian, darling, I heard something ridiculous about divorce papers." "Not now, Mom." "Excuse me?" "I said, not now." His voice was hard, foreign. "For once in your life, not now." He hung up, turned off his phone, sat in the silence he'd created. It took 2 weeks for Julian to find Lena. She was staying in a small rental across town. He'd shown up unannounced, desperate, wrecked. Lena opened the door, her expression unreadable. Her pregnancy was more visible now. 7 months. Their child growing inside her while she built a life that didn't include him. "Lena, please just talk to me." "There's nothing to talk about. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. You weren't wrong, Julian." Her voice was calm. That was somehow worse than anger. "You were exactly who you've always been. I just finally stopped making excuses for you. Tell me how to fix this." "You can't." "Lena, you chose Julian. Every single time you chose. Your mother over our marriage. Your work over our family. Your comfort over my pain. Those weren't mistakes. They were choices." He felt tears burn his eyes. "I love you. I know you do. But love isn't enough when it comes with conditions. When it comes second. When it comes only when it's convenient." She started to close the door. "I'll do anything," he said desperately. "Therapy, counseling, boundaries with my mother, anything." "Why now?" She looked at him directly. "Why, when I'm gone, do you suddenly want to change? Why couldn't you do it when I was begging you to see me?" He had no answer. The truth was devastating. Julian spent the next week spiraling. He replayed every moment, every broken promise. Every time he'd chosen the path of least resistance. He thought about the miscarriage, how he'd left her alone in her grief while he answered work calls, how he'd prioritized his mother's routine appointment over his wife's ultrasound, how he'd said, "I'll make it up to you," so many times it became meaningless. He'd loved Lena, but he'd loved her like a possession, something that would always be there, waiting patiently for scraps of his attention. He called his mother. "We need to talk." "Finally, Julian. This divorce nonsense has to stop. That woman is being completely unreasonable." "Stop." His voice was steel. "Don't talk about her that way." "Excuse me? You've controlled my life since Dad left. I let you because I thought I owed you. But I built my own family, and I destroyed it because I was too weak to set boundaries with you. How dare you?" "I dare because I have nothing left to lose. You've taken everything from me. My marriage, my child, my wife. Because I was too afraid to disappoint you." Silence. "From now on," Julian continued, "I'll call you once a week, on Sundays. We won't discuss Lena. We won't discuss my marriage. And if you ever try to manipulate me again, I'll cut contact entirely. Do you understand?" His mother hung up. Julian felt something break free inside him. Grief, maybe, or relief. He didn't chase Lena with grand gestures. No skywriting, no public declarations, no flowers or jewelry or desperate pleas. Instead, he showed up. He attended a parenting class, alone, learning everything he should have learned with her. He set up a savings account for their child. He started therapy, working through decades of enmeshed relationships and misplaced priorities. He sent Lena one message: "I'm not asking you to come back. I'm just asking you to let me be the father our child deserves. No strings, no expectations, just presence." She didn't respond for 3 days. Then, "Parenting class starts Tuesday, 7 p.m. Don't be late." He arrived 30 minutes early. The road to redemption is long and unglamorous. Julian didn't try to charm Lena, didn't flirt or reminisce or push for reconciliation. He simply showed up, week after week. He took notes, asked questions, practiced swaddling on dolls. After the 4th class, Lena spoke to him. "You didn't have to come to all of these." "Yes, I did." She studied him. "This doesn't fix what you broke. I know. I'm not here to fix it. I'm here because our child deserves a father who's present, whether you forgive me or not." Something flickered in her eyes. Not forgiveness, but maybe acknowledgement. The baby came on a Wednesday. Lena's water broke during dinner. Simone was with her, ready to drive to the hospital. Lena hesitated, phone in hand. "Call him," Simone said quietly. "You'll regret it if you don't." Lena dialed. Julian answered on the first ring. "I'm in labor. I'm on my way." He made it in 12 minutes. He'd clearly broken every traffic law, parked illegally, sprinted through the hospital. When he burst into Lena's room, disheveled and breathless, she almost smiled. "You made it." "I'll always make it," he said. "From now on, I promise." Labor was long. 22 hours. Julian stayed the entire time, held her hand, timed contractions, fetched ice chips, didn't complain once. When complications arose, the baby's heart rate dropping, requiring an emergency C-section, Lena saw real fear in Julian's eyes. Not fear of loss, but fear of failing her again. "I'm right here," he whispered as they wheeled her into surgery. "I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere." She believed him. For the first time in months, she actually believed him. Their daughter was born at 3:47 a.m. 6 pounds, 2 ounces. Perfect. Screaming. Alive. When the nurse placed her in Lena's arms, tears streamed down her face. Julian stood beside her, openly weeping, his hand resting gently on their daughter's head. "She's perfect," he whispered. "You're both perfect." Lena looked up at him, saw the man she'd married, the man she'd hoped he could become. "We're naming her Sophie," Lena said softly, "after my grandmother. Sophie Moreau." Julian's voice cracked. "It's perfect." Recovery was difficult. The C-section left Lena weak and in pain. Julian stayed at the hospital, slept in the uncomfortable chair, changed diapers, learned to swaddle, brought Lena water and medication and anything she needed. He didn't hover, didn't make it about his guilt. He simply helped. On the third day, when Lena struggled to shower alone, Julian helped her, tenderly, carefully, without a word. She cried against his shoulder. Exhausted and overwhelmed. "I've got you," he murmured. "Rest. I'll take care of everything." For once, he did. Genevieve showed up on day 4. She swept into the hospital room, perfectly dressed, carrying an elaborate flower arrangement. "Where is my grandchild?" Lena tensed. Julian stood. "Mom, not now. I have every right to meet." "You have the rights I give you." Julian's voice was calm but immovable. "And right now, Lena needs peace, so you'll leave. And when we're ready, when Lena is ready, we'll arrange a visit. On our terms." Genevieve stared at him, stunned. "You're choosing her over your own mother?" "I'm choosing my family. The family I created. The family I almost lost because I didn't do this sooner." Genevieve left without meeting her granddaughter. Lena felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but respect. They didn't rush back into marriage. Lena moved into a small house. Julian rented an apartment nearby. He visited daily, sometimes for hours, sometimes just to drop off groceries or hold Sophie while Lena showered. He never pushed, never asked when they'd reconcile, never acted entitled to her forgiveness. "Are we okay?" Lena asked one evening, watching Julian rock Sophie to sleep. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I'm willing to spend the rest of my life proving I can be the man you deserve. Even if you never love me again." "Julian, I mean it, Lena. My love for you isn't conditional anymore. It's not about what I get from you. It's about what you and Sophie deserve from me. What would you do in Lena's position?" Months passed. Julian kept showing up. He took parenting classes, read books on emotional availability, started therapy, set ironclad boundaries with his mother. He didn't do it to win Lena back. He did it to become someone worthy of his daughter. But slowly, painfully slowly, Lena began to trust him again. Not because he promised, but because he proved it. Day after day, action after action. One evening, 6 months after Sophie's birth, Julian was leaving after dinner. Sophie was asleep in her bassinet. Lena walked him to the door. "Julian." He turned. "Yeah. Do you want to stay? Just stay. Have breakfast with us. Spend the day." His eyes widened. "Are you sure?" "No, but I'm willing to try." Healing isn't linear. There were setbacks, moments when old patterns resurfaced, times when Lena pulled away, afraid of being hurt again, times when Julian struggled with the weight of his mistakes. But they worked through it with honesty, with therapy, with patience. Julian stopped treating his marriage like something he deserved and started treating it like something he had to earn every single day. And Lena stopped making herself small to fit into his life. She demanded space, respect, partnership. 1 year after Sophie's birth, they renewed their vows. Small ceremony, just close friends, no 500 guests, no elaborate production. Just 2 people choosing each other, again, deliberately, imperfectly. "I can't promise I'll never mess up," Julian said, holding both her hands. "But I promise I'll never stop choosing you. Never stop showing up. never stop earning your trust. Lena smiled through tears. And I promise to tell you when I'm hurting, to not suffer in silence, to demand the love I deserve. They weren't perfect. They never would be. But they were trying, together. Sophie took her first steps on a Tuesday. Lena called Julian at work. He left immediately, arrived home to find their daughter wobbling across the living room, squealing with delight. He dropped to his knees. "Come here, baby girl." Sophie tumbled into his arms. He held her, tears streaming down his face, and looked at Lena. "Thank you," he whispered, "for giving me another chance, for letting me be here." Lena smiled. "Thank you for becoming someone worth giving that chance to." The ending isn't neat. Some days are hard. Some wounds still ache. Lena doesn't forget what Julian put her through. She won't ever forget. But forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's choosing to move forward despite the pain. It's choosing hope over bitterness, growth over resentment, love over fear. Julian isn't the same man who missed that ultrasound. He's someone who learned, the hard way, that the people you love most are the easiest to lose. And Lena isn't the same woman who waited alone in that hospital room. She's someone who knows her worth, who demands to be seen, who won't settle for crumbs of attention. They're building something new. Not perfect, not painless, but real. And sometimes real is enough. So tell me, was Lena right to walk away? Should she have fought harder? Or is this ending what they both deserved? Drop your thoughts below. I want to hear every opinion, every story, every perspective, because love isn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about showing up every single day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And that's a lesson Julian Moreau learned too late, but maybe, just maybe, not too late to matter.